fantastic to be here today to launch our Sustainable Hotel Construction paper. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Luke Baines. I'm a construction partner and co-head of the hotels team at Adderall Goddard International Law Firm. And I'm joined by Josh Gibbons, who is another construction specialist in our team. So before I come on to explain what the paper is all about, I just wanted to talk about how we actually got involved in producing it and the issues that it's seeking to solve. So by way of background, we were approached by the EEA about 2.5 years ago, right at the outset, to help form a legal committee, basically to bring together general counsel and other lawyers from key hotel operators active in the hotel sector to work out how we as lawyers can actually collectively promote ESG in the hotel sector. We introduced a number of our clients and contacts, and the committee has since grown to cover over 20 organisations, I believe, including a number of other law firms, and it's really been great to see everyone come together to collaborate to help promote ESG. So obviously each member of the committee comes from different areas, have different specialisms. We're construction specialists, so we wanted to focus on how to reduce the environmental impact of the development of hotels. Why is that? Well, because the construction industry is one of the biggest polluters in the world, and some estimate that the industry is responsible for 50% of climatic change. So building a hotel has a huge impact both on the operational and embodied carbon. The extraction, production and transportation of building materials has a huge impact on the natural environment, but also when you look at the local environment, when you're building a hotel, the use of resources such as water and the production of waste. However, when you look at developing a hotel, you actually have a huge opportunity as well to affect the life cycle of a hotel. We've talked about the operational impact, the energy use throughout its entire life. How can we make that more sustainable? And it isn't just about building new hotels. By 2050, the country is supposed to achieve net zero, as we've heard. And I'm going to steal a stat that I know you've used before from BREEAM, where they estimate that 80% of the buildings that are going to be here in 2050 are already built. So transformation, retrofitting as part of refurbishment is absolutely key to achieve these goals. And change is required both to reduce the impact of climate change, but also to adapt to it. Sadly, there is going to be some climate change, so reducing carbon emissions and building and retrofitting existing hotels so that they remain cost effective given the changing climate and increased energy costs. So there's clearly a massive need for change, and there's a huge opportunity for us to make a difference. And we've spoken a lot today about the different reasons why we're making these changes. So there's obviously the moral drivers. I think most of the people in the room here are on board with doing the right thing. We've also heard about the legislative requirements, so the accounting standards requiring changes, as was mentioned by Ben in his session earlier. Hotel investors and operators are going to expect sustainable developments and will turn away from those that are not, as we heard in the investment session earlier. And there's the risk of stranded assets, so properties that are too expensive to operate, too expensive to retrofit, and unable to reduce their energy consumption to fall within the frameworks that are required. We also heard about how staff and customers are increasingly driving the agenda, so they're wanting to work in hotels or visit hotels that have green credentials. And then we also heard about the way that the banking industry loans, we've got green loans coming on with preferred rates, although as Alicia mentioned from Accor, that those perhaps preferential rates aren't quite as preferential as everyone would like them to be. According to research that we undertook, 80% of finance companies have said that they would stop funding the real estate sector if it didn't adequately address the transition to a sustainable economy. And then one of the things we're always asked when we start talking about this is, well, what about the cost? Sustainable construction doesn't always mean increased cost. So if you reduce your waste materials on site, you reduce the energy and water use on site, if you include second-hand materials, we've heard about the circular economy, that actually can help save costs in the long run. And obviously, Tim just mentioned the voltage optimizers. What a fantastic example of a way in which you can spend some money and save some money in the long run. So that's an example really of how some of the upfront cost can lead to a reduction in the life cycle cost. So it's essentially increased capex for decreased opex. And that scenario creates some difficulties because it isn't always the same party that's suffering that increased cost that benefits from the decreased cost. And we have to look at ways in which we can innovatively make sure that that is transferred to the right people or shared between the right people. Hopefully that gives some colour to why the issue of sustainability is so important in the construction of hotels. So what does our sustainable hotel construction paper seek to do? Well, firstly, it discusses some of the reasons why it's so important for the construction sector and the hotel sector to focus on sustainability. And the paper then goes on to provide 9 model clauses that can be used in the construction contracts in the hotel sector to promote sustainable construction. And having produced that paper, we invited comments from the committee. We held a roundtable session from key industry figures to take their views. Now, Chatham House rules apply, so I can't give you quotes from everyone that was there. But what was very clear was that there were differing views on how far those clauses should go. Some wanted a far more robust approach to promoting sustainability, while others felt that the clauses simply wouldn't be adopted if they went too far. So clearly there is a balancing act between aiming for the ideal and the aspirational and producing clauses that are going to be practically adoptable. And as David Tarsh mentioned, that those that are commercially viable, and that's a key requirement for the EEA. In reality, the clauses aren't going to be used or suitable for every project, but I do think considering them for inclusion it is going to be something that you can do, and there will be some that will be appropriate in each development that you do. And it's a bit of a line in the sand, because as the provisions become more commonplace, including sustainability provisions, it's going to be an iterative process. These will gradually become more robust, perhaps be greater consequences for breaching them as time goes by. Now, I wanted to make it very clear that the paper and the clauses are free issue. We are happy for them to be taken, for you to use them, adopt them, share them, do whatever you want with them, really. They are accessible by using that QR code. We were slightly concerned that if we turned up with a bunch of printed materials, we might be lynched in this room. So that's the only way you can get it, and I think actually it's available on the EEA website as well. Any issues, just let us know. We can get you a copy, soft copy. We don't have time today to talk in detail, as Mark will appreciate, each of those clauses. But Josh, do you want to just give a bit of an overview about the genesis of those clauses and what they cover?
Thanks, Luke. So I guess very pleased today, as Luke says, to be sharing with you the product, I suppose, what for me has been a bit of a labour of love over the last year or so. I should firstly say that these clauses haven't been drafted in a vacuum. They are based on clauses produced by the Chancery Lane project. For those who are unaware, the Chancery Lane project is a collaborative effort of over 2,500 lawyers from around the world working to develop new contract clauses and model laws to help combat the effects of climate change. Now, we have been working with them for a few years now, and have led on the drafting of a number of clauses that they have produced. And just last week I was speaking with a contact in the United States as to how we can make the leap across the pond. When first discussing with the EEA what we as solicitors could do to promote sustainability in the hotel sector, we saw the obvious synergies with the work we've been doing with the Chancery Lane project and brought the two organisations together. And so with the Chancery Lane project's blessing, we have taken the clauses most appropriate for use in the hotel development context and hotelicise these where necessary. So they cover a number of issues. There is some crossover between the clauses, and it isn't therefore intended that all 9 of them will be used in a single contract, but rather for all to be considered and then the most appropriate selected depending on your development, so a sort of pick and mix approach. And so going on to the clauses themselves, they promote sustainability in a number of ways, including firstly obliging contractors to adopt energy efficiency and environmental considerations, so akin to the standard provisions you see in construction contracts dealing with modern slavery or anti-bribery compliance. Incentivising contractors to come up with modifications that will make the development greener and provide them with a bonus for doing so. Promoting biodiversity in the landscaping of developments. Dealing with sustainable procurement of construction materials, which is a clause that I helped lead the drafting on. dealing with construction waste management and the minimisation of waste and landfill, promoting sustainable practices and net zero aligned provisions in modular build contracts, promoting energy savings or other positive environmental impacts throughout the build phase, and finally, promoting the use of supply chain questionnaires to enable key stakeholders to understand the required approach to climate change initiatives. Now, obviously, it's important that where you're using the clauses, you ensure that they are included at the outset of negotiations so that these important issues are given the appropriate airtime and consideration between the parties. So I'll hand back over to Luke.
Thanks, Josh. I just wanted to end up really with a bit of a call to arms. Please do consider these clauses or other sustainability clauses when you're coming to do your next hotel development. We'd also be hugely grateful if you could let us know if you've got any views on the clauses or if you're using them, or any others, as I say, any other clauses. Really what we want to do is to get to a position where the use of sustainable clauses in construction documents is market practice. And the more examples that we can see of these clauses being used, the easier it is for us to evidence that. And obviously, if you need any assistance in considering alternative provisions or ways in which you can make these clauses work for your particular circumstances, then please do feel free to get in contact. We're going to be here afterwards, and obviously you've got our details for contacting us as well. So many thanks, and I hope you find the paper interesting and that the clauses are useful.
Very good, lads. Well done. Just one. Very impressive. Thank you. On time. Just one point of clarification. It's not just construction, I assume. It's also refurbishment.
Exactly, yes. So retrofitting, refurbishment. We're talking about construction in the wider context, so any building work, essentially.
Terrific. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.